for coming. I mean, this is truly amazing. And Terry and my brother Thane have done an unbelievable job putting it together. I don't know where Logan is, but she was going to give everybody a card that had a website on it where we can all share our memories on the Alzheimer's Association page. So I've set up a tribute page for my dad, and there is Dave, do you have some of those cards? Did everybody get a card?
Yep. Yes, I got one. I got some.
Did everybody get a card? Come on.
Yeah.
Okay, because what I need y'all to do is to share your memories on that site, and then everybody can go to that site and look at those memories. There is no reason to feel like you need to give a donation. You do not need to do that. But we would appreciate it very much if y'all would share your memories on that site. And I'd like to thank the Heckers for the use of their boat today. And I can't thank Terry and Thane enough for getting this thing together for all of us. Now I'm going to invite, I think the next speaker is my brother Thane. Here you go, buddy.
I have no idea. I do want to thank everybody for coming, and especially want to thank the Heckers for the hospitality of everything they're doing for us today. I guess, all of you guys, most everybody knew Dad, loved him, hate him, whatever. But you all knew him as RT. And what's been really, really hard for me, my family, everybody, has been the last 10 years. He's such a proud man, and it just sucked to see him like that. Sorry. But I do know this much, even through thick and thin that Dad and I went through, which was plenty. I do want to say that I'm very, very proud for him to be my dad. He was one of a kind. He was a free spirit. How many of you guys? He touched so many lives in so many ways, and everybody probably has a story that's going to make somebody laugh about Bob Taylor. It's the best thing, except maybe my sister, that my dad ever did. As far as making somebody a whole person. Dad and I had our faults and differences, but they had a wonderful, wonderful relationship at all times. And I'm talking about the things at the point of view, his accomplishments that he was able to do, even after the restaurant, riding that stupid bike across the country, around Australia, or whatever else. He was a go-getter. He was never, ever, ever, I don't think, satisfied with where he was. He always had to try to find something better, something faster, as Ellen says, faster horses, and maybe some younger women, and definitely more money. And like I said, for all of you people who work there, and I've talked to some of you tonight, we all worked at the point of view, but it wasn't a job. It was not a job. And I don't want to use the old Army cliche or whatever, like it was an adventure, but it was a way of life for a lot of us. I know it was for me because I was there 85 hours a week. But for a lot of you, you came into work and you all cared, you gave a damn, and you guys were all part of a very, very, very important part of the history in Parkersburg or any place else, and just the restaurant business in general. In closing, the only thing I can say is that Bob Taylor, you will be greatly missed. But it is the best. And now you are truly free. I love you, Dad. Stay on. I'm just.
We know who you are.
It's fallen off 3 or 4 times. Thank you, great job. I have my story with my brother. Can you hear me? My story about my brother is 80 years long. I'm not going to talk for 80 years. I could talk for 80 weeks. I could talk for 8 days. I could talk for 8 hours. I won't. 8 minutes, maybe. I hope not. But I just wanted to say what I don't know if everybody will say it or not, what an unbelievable, unbreakable bond we had from the get-go. Bob was there. I thought he was the smartest person in the world. I was 2, he was 4. Hell, he knew everything. When I started the school, I could not speak an intelligible sentence. Nobody could understand me. It was gibberish. Well, not in my head it wasn't gibberish, but what came out was, well, Bob could understand me because we were together, but my mother could only understand a few words. So I'm in 1st grade in the reading class, and I'm crying. Now, there was another person in there who was frightened or upset or whatever too, but that was Emily Lou Gilbert. But when she got that way, she stood up and peed. I did not do that. Miss King, when I'm crying, and she can't understand why I'm crying. So she sends upstairs for Bob. He's in the 3rd grade, Miss Cochran's room. He comes down, and she says, take him out and see if you can understand what's wrong with him. Well, he comes back in about 10 seconds. He said, oh, he's crying because he can't read. Oh, Miss King said, that's okay, we'll teach him to do that. I mean, you know, if there had been special education at that time, I'd have been shipped off to wherever because I was uneducable. Well, that may have been true, but in any case, you know, from that point on, you know, well, I couldn't add or subtract and he could divide. How smart, I mean, that just, well, I found out later in life that he had some weaknesses also, but I won't mention any of those.
Long time no see.
But that bond stayed forever. We went to college, room together. When Rosemary and I got married, Shirley and Bob took us to Iowa City, where we were students at the university. That Christmas, 1956, we came home to Connellsville, and Bob, Shirley, Rosemary, and I drove in Bob's car to Clearwater, Florida. We all sat in the front seat. That's how damn skinny we were, or how poor we were. And then they took Rosemary and me from Clearwater to Iowa, back to the university. And they went back to Bowling Green. Well, those are just illustrative of the relationship that we had. Would you turn that page? I got a few more things to say, and that's it. No, yeah, that's it, good. No, you don't need that on there. One more thing about Unbreakable Bond. Fane mentioned that Bob traveled around the country by bicycle. Well, he didn't just travel to all 50 states.
he traveled to all 50 state capitals on his bike. Now, you think about that. You know, if you want to be in each state, you can stand in one spot, and you can be in Nevada, Utah, Colorado, and Arizona. But he went to each state capital. To go to those state capitals might take you a week or two. Every night, he called me on the phone and told me where he was, told me how the day went, told me where he was going the next day. And now, you remember, no, you don't remember. In those days, there were no cell phones. You had to go and find a phone booth, put money in it, and make a call. And then when you were done, you had to put more money in it because you probably talked longer than you were supposed to. He called me every night. And, you know, that was, we weren't kids anymore. I can't recall the year, but I think Bob was maybe 72 or 70 or something like that. One other thing. When we had our first child, whom you may know of it as Eric, she was 3 weeks from graduation at the University of Iowa, and Bob was a little early. Eric was a little early. In any case, we had decided we were going to call him Eric. And after it was a boy, we couldn't find out ahead of time then. I said, well, he needs a middle name, and Eric what? Well, how about Daniel? I said, no, that doesn't seem to go. I said, what if we name him Robert Eric? Oh, okay. So that closeness continued, you know, forever. I do have to tell you one more thing. Bob was in Carmel. He was teaching, and he had a Carmel carriage company that took tourists around the city of Carmel. And of course, as you would expect, one day the damn horse stampeded and ran down the damn street and ruined every car. But he survived that, got back into business. I had come to Parkersburg, and we had always been interested in a restaurant from day one. And so I called him. He's in Carmel. If you know anything about Carmel, that's a pretty upper class place. I said, Bob, I found a place. We can do a restaurant in Parkersburg, West Virginia. Long pause. Are you nuts? I said, no, got the perfect place. We had lived here several years. So he came, showed him the site, stayed, he brought his horses, and his wife, Pam. Yeah, Pam. I found that site, and I showed it to him, and oh hell, somebody just reminded me what the name of the builder was. I can't think of his name, but I think it was 5 acres and cost $5,000 or something, and well, the rest you know all about. Now I want our daughter Melanie to come up here and read a statement that she wrote that is absolutely perfectly perceptive. It's moving. I couldn't read it, and I said to her, you know, she'll read it. So
He's my backup.
Melanie, okay. Thank you. You'll be able
All right, okay.
Let me say one more thing. I didn't edit it. I didn't correct the word. I just said it is marvelous. She had written it, printed it, gave it to me. Excuse me, go ahead. I don't mean to.
You were going to read it, and then 10 minutes ago, said.
I just told her. Terry just told her.
It's all right. It's okay. We'll see how we do. Medically, I should be pretty good this year. All right, my dear old Uncle Bob. To think my first accounts of my dear old Uncle Bob had me hiding and fearful of this big bearded man. I recall him arriving from California with a new wife and a couple of horses to start a restaurant in Parkersburg, West Virginia. I must have been 6 or 7. Fast forward a few years, and lots of fun and memories had been made at the Point of View and the sites surrounding the restaurant.
We took rafting trips over the Blennerhassett Island and down the Ohio River with my dear old Uncle Bob. When we moved to Lexington, Massachusetts, my dear old Uncle Bob flew up in his private plane and flew my dad to meet at Quebec for lunch. He wanted to try authentic croque monsieur sandwiches, research and development for the POV. In the summer of 1981, my dear old Uncle Bob, my dad and I bicycled from San Francisco to Denver, Colorado together. Then my dear old Uncle Bob continued on the rest of the way across the United States to Rehoboth Beach, Delaware, by himself. One of many solo bicycle trips he took in his lifetime. We had a blast together and really made a special bond with him for the rest of my life. My dear old Uncle Bob was a character. In the summer of 1983, I took a leap of faith and went to work for my dear old Uncle Bob as the ice cream maker on display at the ice cream machine in Charleston, South Carolina. One of his favorite concepts were his hot little Alfa Romeo sports car was used as the topping bar / car. I spent the summer living with his wife Kathy at their beautiful home in Kiowa Island, South Carolina. He was back and forth between the POV and Charleston, and when he was at Kiowa, he was working on his latest invention. This was his water pick for the shower. He was tinkering anytime he could. I was always happy to hear that dear old Uncle Bob would be attending our next family function, family reunion, golf outing, backyard barbecue, Gold Cup weekend, Utah ski trips, etc. He always had something to say, something to pitch, and some invention he was working on. Maybe even a new wife. He was a big dreamer. He was in search of the next big thing. My dear old Uncle Bob had a degree in sarcasm and a master's in bullshit. But he knew how to laugh at himself, and make those around him smile. These last few years have been so terribly hard to see the deterioration of someone who had such a lust for life. Yet his ever-present smiley face also leaves a very lasting impression, and the farthest thing from the scary impression I had of my dear old Uncle Bob some 45 years ago. I will always hold a special place in my heart for my dear old Uncle Bob.
Great job.
Good job.
Okay. Well, I don't know how to follow any of that. Being the first non-direct decedent or relative of any kind, it's very touching to hear and to be here just below the point. But they asked me to say a few things, and I'm happy to, because Bob was very important to me. Some of you might recognize me. I'm Dave Stevens, and I worked for Bob for a number of years, and I am Ellen's husband, and so Bob's son-in-law. We're here today to celebrate Robert Taylor, Robert, Bob, RT, Papa Bob, Uncle Bob, Bobbo Bob, Big Bird, and for short and infamous time, Uncle Grandpa Bob. First, I'd like to ask you all to join, please, in applause as we extend our gratitude to Terry for organizing this, for doing all the hard work, and to Thane and to Ellen for hosting, and especially for the Hectors for donating this majestic vehicle, this vessel, the PA Denny for our parting and cruising pleasure. Bob was a lot of things to a lot of people. This crowd, despite the weather, is testament to the influence Bob had on the Parkersburg community. I don't think there was a single teenager growing up in the Heights in the late 1900s that didn't, for at least some time in their life, wash dishes in the pit, bus tables at an incredible pace, redressing each table with fresh linens, napkins, candles, flowers, silverware, napkins, and yes, even ashtrays and matches, to wait tables, tote ice, serve hot rolls and squaw bread, and admit it, scarf down a shrimp or two or a piece of cheese from the banquet tray at the dish hole. Some of these youngsters were even lucky enough to work, as Bob put it, where the real action is, in the kitchen, as grill cooks, app cooks, setups, and salutaries. I consider myself very lucky and fortunate for having been hired at the point of view under false pretenses. Incidentally, not only did I receive a world-class education in the art of fine dining and culinary arts, second to none of any of the very few culinary institutes that were available to one at that time, but I consider myself uniquely fortunate in my relationship with Bob and the POV because it was there that I met my wife of 27 years and mother of our 2 children, as well as my introduction and welcome to the extended Taylor family. Bob was a son, a brother, a student, a military man, a teacher, a husband, a father, a husband, an uncle, a husband, a restaurant innovator, a husband, an ice cream maverick, a husband, grandfather, a husband, a cross-country biker, a husband, a great-grandfather, a husband, and an incredibly intelligent man whose mind and memory withdrew away before our eyes in an agonizing downward spiral to total senility and dementia. Bob was a very fortunate man, living an adventurous life, tasting and enjoying some of the finest things life can offer a boy grown up in Connellsville, PA. And he was especially fortunate that despite a number of life choices that were very difficult for his children to ever understand, they were with him and cared for him for the final 10 years. For 10 years, they watched as Bob Taylor, Dad, slowly slipped from existence and more painfully slipped out of his memory. I'd like to express my respect and admiration for Ellen and Dane, for Uncle Dan, his children, and all those who were at Bob's elbow and eventually at his bedside throughout his long journey into darkness. Alzheimer's or dementia is an ugly, selfish disease that robs people of all walks of life of their dignity, their memories, their motor facilities, and eventually their lives. Enough of that. This is a celebration of life, a celebration of Bob's life, and I'd like to share some of the things that I've celebrated in my life, and how my life has been undoubtedly touched, influenced, and educated by Bob Taylor. As a direct influence of knowing Bob and working point of view, I have my family to celebrate, not only my immediate family, but the extended Taylor family. I celebrate literally every job I have ever had as a result of working for Bob Taylor at the point of view. From Parkersburg to South Carolina to Canada to California and finally to Virginia. I celebrate that I'm an uneducated man from Parkersburg, West Virginia who is able to stand and work shoulder to shoulder with any trained chef I've encountered in the country. I celebrate that I know the difference between a bechamel and a velouté, a cocktail fork and a snail clamp, a ship cup and a souffle cup, a sea scallop from a bay scallop, a Dom Perignon from a Mickey's Big Mouth. Actually, I think Thane taught me that one. I celebrate the fact that I know how to prepare a Caesar salad dressing tableside, serve a porterhouse steak for 2, carve a Chateaubriand, flambe a steak Diane, a cherries Jubilee, a bananas Foster, with confidence and finesse. I celebrate the incredible experience I had while growing and learning under Bob's tutelage. As I moved along, starting as a lunchtime busser and eventually to maitre d' and restaurant manager, stopping at virtually every position in the restaurant, both front and back, where the real action is. And then on to South Carolina to ICM 1 and to help open ICM 2, and eventually wed my wife in the picturesque Park on a sunny April day in beautiful, historic, and charming South Carolina. Charles. I celebrate all my friends and good times I met along the way, from casual acquaintances to roommates and long lifetime friendships. I celebrate the things I learned and still use today, things like how to open a bottle of wine, how important it is to, quoting Bob, never pop your cork in public when opening a bottle of champagne, that a Beaujolais Nouveau is a fun and not too serious wine with flavor that fills the mouth. How to make a roux and a mirepoix, a hollandaise and a sauce bernaise, how to open a fresh oyster and then slurp it down with lemon and Tabasco, how to cut steaks from subprimals, roast a prime rib au jus, grill steaks by the hundreds in 4 hours or less, make fresh egg noodles, and how fried eggplant smothered in marinara sauce and provolone cheese is second only to hot, fresh broccoli parmesan. I celebrate the fact that I had an incredible opportunity to be a part of Bob's life and the Point of View's life. The Point of View that brought California architecture and decorum to the Mid-Ohio Valley, high on the hill above us, behind us, and to Bob and to Kathy Taylor, and to Thane Taylor, and to Ellen and Dan and Mike Bargelow, and all the people that I worked with over all those years. And I am happy to celebrate in knowing that I played a small part in serving soup or salad, or was that super salad? The first endless salad bar, tableside entrees, and flambé desserts to Parkersburg, West Virginia. Thank you, Bob. Thank you, Thane and Terry. Thank you all. And now let's celebrate. Anyone have anything else to say?
Now is your opportunity. Anybody have a memory or a thought or anything you want to share with everybody?
When they were
Come on, somebody's got a funny story, something.
Come on. Don't be shy.
I'll tell a story.
Come on.
Jameson.
My name's Jameson. I'm an alcoholic. Thank you. Good night. I was in 89 to 92. That was my tour of the Point of View. And I still have great fond memories, just like they were saying, you know, learning how to open a bottle of wine and everything from that to, you know, realizing that you could make a living waiting tables. I had no idea. My funny little story was Thane and I were getting ready for one of the Taste of Parkersburgs out at the Holiday Inn. We were loading up the little hatchback car, and we had a big sheet cake out there that was ready to go. And on the mini trips out there, we looked out, and there was a dog standing in the back of the car in the sheet cake. You just have to and he taught me that just with a knife, you can kind of just scrape those little footprints right off that cake. That was the Point of View's most proud moment. And actually, one of the other really cool moments with Thane, we were on a ski trip, and we met at the Point of View about 6 in the morning, 5:30 in the morning. And Thane, of course, met me with, you know, coffee and Baileys. Why wouldn't you? And we're on this coach going to ski land or wherever we were going. And Thane and I made the entire coach envious because Thane, being Thane, cooked this barbecue chicken in this monster loaf of bread. So on this coach with 40 other people that we didn't know, he opens up this thing, and all wafting through the entire coach is this marvelous smelling barbecue chicken that only Thane and I were eating. Sorry, suckers. I don't know, I'm 49. I look back at my life and think one of the most fun and fond memories I have was with the Point of View and learning things and having fun, learning a vocation. I moved to California after that. and did well because of the tutelage and all the things I learned from the goofy little spot up there on the hill. That was just marvelous, the Point of View restaurant, and I just forever and grateful to the Taylors for what they did and what they gave us and the opportunity we had. So thank you all. Thanks for the time.
Anybody else? I know you want to. I can see the look on your face.
So I feel like the old man. I feel like the old man around here, except Dave's older than I am. I started with Point of View in '83. Worked there for about a year. Met my lovely wife there. She worked there too. She literally married the girl next door. She grew up right next door to the Point of View, so I didn't have to go far to pick her up for a date. I'd leave work, pick her up, we could go out. We, of course, everything revolved around work. All of my friends worked there. Dave, eventually I followed Dave to Charleston, South Carolina, where I was with ICM 1 and 2, the famous Alfa Romeo, the bathtub. Anybody that sells ice cream out of a bathtub, I just can't imagine. But I posted this on our Facebook page when we were going to South Carolina. Bob goes, well, come on, we'll fly you down. So that was always a little bit nerve-wracking, Bob in a plane. But we got on and we flew in. We got in late to Charleston. We hadn't really had much to eat that day. And he decides to treat us to a South Carolina delicacy. So he pulls it over in this very dark area on a very dark road to Keel Island. And we're like, Gina and I are like, what is he doing? So he makes a purchase, comes back to the car and says, oh, we should have a toast. And out comes a bottle of warm vodka. He then has a toast with us. We eat some hot-boiled peanuts for the first and last time, because if you've ever had a hot-boiled peanut, you'll know that there's something else. And then we chased it down. But Bob had a tremendous influence on my life. I met my wife. We've been together for 30 years now. We've raised 2 beautiful boys. They are still in South Carolina. We spent the next 30 years of our life in South Carolina. I stayed in the restaurant business until I figured out there's other jobs out there besides the restaurant business, that there are other companies you can go work for, that you don't have to spend all your time in a kitchen. But it was a way for me to escape from Parkersburg for a while, and then work brought me back. So I'm happy to be back. I'm happy to be here and spend time with Dave and Ellen. You were kind of in between there. We didn't know each other much at that time, but it was an honor to work for Bob, and that's all I'm going to say. I'll let everybody else talk.
Jerry and Karen. Sheila. Say something.
I worked for Bob for a very, very long time, and both of my kids went to college because of Bob Taylor. He fired one and threw chairs over the hill the other one was sitting in. And they decided the restaurant business was not for them.
Logan? Anybody? If anybody decides, come up, let me know. In the meantime, I got a little housework here to do. For those of you that followed the event page we had on Facebook, we had some trivia winners. We did a different trivia question every day. Where's Jameson? And Nancy Stevens? Not here? Okay. Oh, here she is, right there. Is that her? Oh, a different Nancy Stevens. Okay. D. Carpenter? D. Carpenter? Is she still here? And Stacy Boston?
Stacy.
Now, I'm sure everybody knows that when they tore down the building of the Point of View, I'm sure y'all know they tore it down. But when they were tearing it down, I went out and I rescued some bricks. These are part of the point of view, all right? The guys doing the excavating let me come in and take some. So, the 4 winners.
Oh, thank you so much. That is awesome.
And shells that were in the landscaping, all the clam shells that you all work so hard shelling all the time, that were thrown in the landscaping. I rescued some of those as well. We have plain shells and we have some that I made into angels. The 4 winners are the first ones to get their choice. They get a choice of a brick or an angel. We have more bricks if you will. Okay, they're inside on the table. Okay.
Great idea. Smart.
So, once these 4 individuals that won our trivia questions, and does everybody get the trivia? The first question that Jameson won was, what was the signature dessert on the dessert card that went around every day? And it was?
Banana split pie.
And
Delicious.
Nancy's, Bob's favorite music to play in the dining room during dinner hours was the Eagles, and Nancy Stevens got that one. Our last question was a 2-part question that was the tree by the front entrance, which was the cypress, and the unusual item found in the landscaping was the shells. That was E. Carpenter that won that one. And then Stacy's question that she won was, what was the point of view phone number? And she got it right off the bat. Do you remember it? Yes, 863-3366. All right. So once they have made their choices of which they want, we have some other ones later on. Those little cards that you filled out and put in the bucket when you came, we're going to draw. And if you all want a brick or an angel or a plain shell, you'll get your choice when we draw names. Okay. Anybody else have anything? Congratulations, guys.
Thank you. Thank you. One of you rocks. One of you rocks.
No, I have. I'm going to give those 4 winners their choice first, and then the rest of them are going to draw.
Just a reminder, anyone who doesn't have the link to the Alzheimer's Association page and then on to Bob's tribute page, as Ellen mentioned, we'd really like everyone to just visit the page, sign into the guest book, say hello, say a word. It'll be there forever. We can all access it and look at it anytime we want. So if you don't have that address, if you've got, if you're computer savvy, you've already got the link. If you don't, it's on this card, and they were on the front table. It's probably not there anymore. I did say that. I said that. Okay, yes, ma'am. Sign the guest book. Oh, okay.
Just speak for my father. He couldn't make it. I just have a quick little story that my dad always tells. Eric Taylor, he proudly says he was probably the first fired employee of the point of view. I don't know how old he was. I don't know where Pap is. He might be able to. 14. He was 14. It was the first night the restaurant was open. He was carrying a tray of glasses back behind the bar and dropped it, and was promptly fired with some colorful language by Bob. Within, I think, 10 minutes, he was rehired after my dad's grandfather, who was there, saw everything happen, gave Bob a talking to, and Bob quickly rehired my dad. And, yeah, he really wishes he'd be here. He had to go to a wedding, but I felt like I should at least relay that story. He's told it 100 times. His Uncle Bob was one of his favorite people, and he had a blast at the point of view too, so thank you for letting me share that.
Everybody else? All right, there's plenty of food downstairs. Everybody make your way down there and help yourself.
Thanks again, Jerry.